Thank you so much. First, I want to say, we've been a school counselor and teacher that I want to thank you for having this job and that I really appreciate everything you do and people understand how hard you work. But I really do. I do. And it takes a lot for you to do this. But I'm here today representing 7 other households on my street because I live in, behind me is a water containment ditch that is controlled by the Woodlands Water. And I've lived in the house since 2003. And we had a lot of issues, which I mean, the 4-foot tube goes right through my property, right along, and goes out behind it. And with a tax day flood, hurricanes and stuff like that, to the point where we were having to sandbag around our front doors. My front door is 90 feet from the street. On our street, we're in the low spot, and there is a big conglomeration of gutters there. And we get all this water coming off of Research Forest because there are no ditches. It comes into the tree line, it comes along the sidewalk, and it just comes down. And we are right across from Woodlands High School. You know, Cat's Cradle, you turn, Summer Storm Circle. And we get all the water from West Summer Storm Circle. And then we get all the water from Twinberry on one side. It's really supposed to go down and go on the other Twinberry and go out, but it doesn't. It comes down, meets that water coming off the road and comes down to us. Then we get all the water the other way from Coffins Crossing coming down from the other side of the Summer Storm Circle. Then, having met with my good friend Jim Stinson 5 years ago about this, he also informed us that we were getting 2 streets, cul-de-sacs, 2 things over in a big tube coming over, going underneath the street and joining that same tube. The water containment ditch, it's not one of those great big huge ditches. It just goes on out to 242. No, it's completely surrounded by homes. And it's got one big tube that comes out, and then of course the whole ditch. And then you go down in 2 large tubes that go under Research Forest, which joins a dirt canal that takes it way out the Never Never Land to Springfield. And you know, it got to the point where we really thought we were going to start losing, you know, we we're going to water it out. Then the Water Task Force was formed. And so I went there with a whole conglomerate of neighbors and staff and got up and spoke. And they said, okay, we're gonna get somebody with you. And then Jim came over and said, I want to help you. I'm in charge of the Woodlands Water, da, da, da. And so after all this time driving through and seeing things, he proposed and got paid for that ditch had never been dug out. And it was kind of a pond and all this debris and stuff in there. Came in with the bulldozers and dump trucks and just dug that out so good, made it a little bit wider, a little bit longer. And that was in 2019. And I'm telling you, never a problem. And I redid my whole fence. And my neighbor did too. He had a fence, he had a wrought iron fence up, and I got a new fence, and it's 4 inches above the ground because the water eventually is going to come up and go up the driveways and go over the top into the water containment ditch. Okay, I call it a ditch, but it's a huge thing. Anyway, so that just solved the problem. Oh my Lord, we didn't think about it. We had a little bit of water come up in our yard, and before that it was like 12 feet of water into your yard, and it's no big deal until this year. And so I am retired, and when I realized that it's usually spring break, that's when they're mowing that ditch, and hadn't mowed it. So by April 1st, I called and said, who's in charge of mowing the ditch? And said, Randy Gifford. I called and had a lovely conversation with him and said, you know, it's 3 foot high out there. And the derecho has taken a tree and broke it in half, and it is laying out there and stuff. And that needs to be dealt with. There's another tree in the tree line that I believe belongs to the woodland that is over and it's going to eventually come down in that ditch. And those things need to be addressed. Oh, yes, ma'am, we're going to be out there. We're going to be out there. And that was on, I called him April 1st. They mowed on April 29th. And so I called him and said, hey, I called him May 1st. I said, I see that you mowed. I'm really glad you did that. He said, I said, you didn't mow the center. If you don't mow the center, all these really fibrous plants are going to grow in there. And it's going to be very, very hard for that water to get out and get going. And it's going to start building and dug mud and stuff in there. It's going to start making mounds. Oh, we're going to come there in a couple days. Okay, long story short, they have only mowed once, literally, and they have never mowed the center. And when we got a little cloud burst, was it like July 23rd or something like that, in the middle of the day, if y'all were caught out in it because it was really just came down. And I noticed 2 days after that, I went out there and I have pictures on my phone. And now we've had a pond for almost, last 8 weeks, a permanent pond. Now we have this huge mud island. And so that whole thing, the whole tube coming out of that is blocked. Okay? Here's my thing. I'm asking you for our street. I said, you did such a good job on that. And I'm sure it costs a lot of money. And you got to maintain things like roads and all your infrastructure. And we need every cubic foot of that ditch to be available for a hurricane or a rain event. We don't want our yards to be the containment area. Do you understand that? We are asking you have to bring something in to make that the way it was. And I asked Jim when we were driving around looking at stuff and talking, trying to figure it out, because he offered me another tube. I said, it's not the tube. That tube, that ditch gets full about 2 feet above, and that's like a concrete wall. And the water coming, especially thing called a sec, shoots out of those drainage things 3 feet in the air. I'm not kidding you. And then it'll finally get deep enough and it'll just spin out there, spinning the whole road because that water is coming out. It's still coming, but now it's coming on the street. So we need that first, fill up first. And then we know that our streets gonna get flooded. We just don't want our homes and our garages to get flooded. And right now, we don't even have, we have maybe, I'm being generous, 2/3 capacity of that ditch. Because it's filled with debris, it's filled with weeds, it's filled with dirt. The tube is completely blocked. And I'm asking you, please, would you take it back to a ditch and not a pond? As Jim assured me, oh no, this is never meant to be a pond. This is a ditch. I have to say.
Thank you.
Very much.
Could I have your address?
Yes, 39
Okay,
East
yeah,
Summer Storm Circle.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome to come. You're welcome to walk through our yard. I either have another gate put right there. There's one other. If we had to, we could open up one gate and the other gate to make the water go out. Anything you do. Oh, I do want to say that the last time it was mowed, that it was mowed on July 3rd. Last time it was mowed. And then on July 10th, the very next Wednesday, a gentleman was out there with a weed eater. I heard a weed eater going. I go running out there, and he didn't speak any English. And lo siento, no habla español. And so, but we did communicate, and he came to mow that ditch. He's pointing to me. I said, I'm supposed to do here, go here. I'm like, no, did you bring some hip waders? That's got to be at least 3 foot deep out there. And he's just duck-dunking. And so he shows me a card, and it's a landscaping company. And so is the Woodlands Water Landscaping contracting that out for someone else to come and mow the center of those ditches? I mean, you used to bring this great big thing with this great big claw thing. And we just go down there and just obliterate everything in there. You gotta remember, you think about your yard. When you let something get 3 foot tall and they're coming to mow it, where does that debris go? It lays there. It eventually is going to break down, and it's going to be part of that. And that means you're going to have to, dig that out even more. If you cut it when it's not so tall, it would just break down easier. Sorry.
Thank you. Good to see you, Mary.
I'm Rusty Freeman. I live at 47 East Summer Storm, 2 houses west of Mary. Jim, we met back in 2001.
Allison.
Yes. When we west, when Mary, we had so with regard to what Mary said, to reorient you, the pension area is east of our street, and it's on the north side of Research Forest. If it happens to be going east and west, right there. And then on the south side of Research, on the east side of the high school, that's where that water flows to. So I'll kind of reorient you for what Mary's talking about.
If you drove to my house, you would think that ditch was behind my house.
But I'm kind of wondering, given your strained resources, and I don't know if you are handling the tree removal around here or or what, or if the same contractor is handling that. I'm wondering what the, priority is for, now that it is hurricane season, it's been hurricane season since June 1, kind of where we sit, where you're all, what your work plan is for the, cleaning out all these, retention areas, drainage ditches, that kind of thing. So can you all help us understand what that is?
Sure. The mowing schedule is April, June, August, November. So that's every year. And then we do fertilizer and herbicide in the fall and spring. That's the normal maintenance of the facilities.
Where did? It's a little bit long.
The entire woodlands, all of the ditches, yes. So it starts and it, because it takes almost a month to finish. And they start in Harper's and they go all over the entire woodlands. So it may be that your section is further in the weeks. And then of course, if it rains while they're doing it, then they'll have to take a couple of days off and it takes a little bit longer to finish all of the woodlands, but
So they never go to the.
never mowed the center. Typically,
It's like that.
sure, that varies on different ditches, as to what needs to be mowed or not. I mean, some ditches have growth that grows up in it. Sometimes the herbicide will usually knock that out. And then other times they'll go in and they can, I think sometimes they take their boom and put it down into that and mow it, but, that's not, always the first thing to do, but, so that's in play. Well, that ditch, sits on the, level of Bear Branch. So when the big ditch is up, those smaller ditches are going to ride on that level for whatever that is. So
Have you been, you know what it is?
I do, yes, I've been. So, and then after this last event in July, we went out and made sure that there was question whether or not the storm sewers were clear. We had them daylighted and televised. They were all clear. So there was no blockages in the ditches.
And you're talking about fires included?
Yes, yes. So all those were clear. And of course, as far as the growth in the ditches, this has been a little bit of abnormal year because it's been so wet during the summer. So what we've encountered is that from that June mowing, because June and July were so wet, that this is abnormal, that grass in there is abnormally high. It's really high. I've walked it myself and the grass was up to my thigh. And last year, this time, that grass would have been at my ankle because there was no water. So, because it's July and, between June and August, is the mowing season for us. This year, the grass has grown up significantly higher, because of all the rain and the not as hot weather. But, so we are kind of looking at the scheduling of it. But problem is, on that particular schedule, knowing that last month was a wet month, difficult just to maneuver the entire operation up a month or up 20 days or whatever. So that's something that we're going to be looking at going forward.
We request priority for that area of ours since it's northernmost and you got, drainage from multiple neighborhoods, or at least two neighborhoods.
Priority of, what do you mean priority?
Priority on your schedule to get it mowed in front of some others.
I see. We can certainly,
You guys contracted?
that's not us. No, that's not us. It's not us. We don't subcontract.
Mow. You come to mow center, what are you gonna do about that big dirt accumulation?
We have instances where many residents are mowing their own areas of our ditches. So I can only assume that's, and you mentioned that. What is a tube?
The culvert.
Okay, okay.
It's current in the cul-de-sac.
I see.
And then Jim went and add another, and if we were gonna propose this, and get pushed through with the money and stuff, that's not a problem, having another one, that's what's gonna make, it's not, the difference is that it's gonna stay there for a long time. I talked to, Mike Mooney about it in 2017, and he said it has to have positive movement. I put in quotes in my calendar, and I understand that. If that's not moving all the way down there, that's never gonna move. And it's hitting right there, and the light bulb went off. It's not about getting the water out, it's about keeping the water. I need that ditch to be big, and everything that ditch, I don't need anything in that ditch. So the water can be.
Have either of y'all's houses ever flooded?
Close, I mean.
But that never flooded, neither one.
I mean, we,
Your house?
during,
No, 10 inches of water. in it.
yeah, it was large.
Yeah.
I've had,
Literally broke down
I've
the
had
ditch. It
water.
literally broke down. the
I've had water flow up my driveway and into the side fence between the detached garage and the house.
There's sidewalk.
And all the debris settled there, but I had a sandbag with mulch bags and big plastic sheets because it came up to the threshold.
Pretty high.
Door.
That's the problem. Your sidewalk and your driveway is gonna act as a conduit. Your yard is gonna slow the water down. And so I have a 3-car garage, and so, oh boy, it's gonna go, you know, and we would have to get 40 sandbags to make a barrier across that driveway. We did make a barrier across our sidewalk and stuff like that to keep it from the house, then it just went up there. I mean, I feel like in our neighborhood, like especially the guy next door, he went and got a rock iron fence. I got my fence 4 inches of the ground, anything to try to get that to go. But we also need dog it. You know, that ditch is not being maintained in the way it should be maintained.
I mean, the neighbor on the her left, which would be the east side, he built a wrought iron fence because during whatever storm it was, he had to tear down his wooden privacy.
I do want to take a look at this clogged pipe you're talking about too, but that's news to me.
It's long.
It sounds like it may be just needing to remove the silt, just
Right.
re-excavate the silt out of the drainage.
Right, that's what it sounds like.
It's gonna get
Can you
you don't
can you
mow it.
contact us when you, get that on your schedule?
Sure, we'll take a look at it.
Well, most all of us are retired now. Back in the day, we were all working. But we're home now. You know, y'all come on.
I think your mud board is too, so.
Thank you.
Where do we find an opportunity to volunteer?
Here you go. Well, thank you for coming.
Thanks.
So good to hear.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any requests for,
I don't have any.
okay? What?
No, Justin.
I have a couple of questions on it, if I could. Allow?
Yeah.
Page 5, just for air. The water service repair, above budget, is there anything to be worried about for our next budget?
No, just increase repairs. We try to budget based off the last few years of data of actuals.
So these actual are not included. Yeah, no, we have. That's all I'm just gonna.
Yeah, it's kind of a crystal ball.
Okay, and then the Bear Branch number, year-to-date activity. 155, is that, I guess I'm trying to reconcile that with what's on page 7. For expenses, so there's sort of 2 different accounts, I think.
It's 2 different projects,
Oh, that's 2
2
different.
different things.
Oh, the 155 isn't the drainage project?
No,
Okay,
that's the regular Bear Branch maintenance for the dam.
the dam.
The dam, yeah,
Okay, thank you.
sorry.
Oh, no, it's not your fault. I'm still learning, so I appreciate that.
Actually, 2 comments on the minute.
Oh, that's it. Sorry.
Go on to that, whether we, but on it. So, on, sheet number 9, one of the items I brought up at the last meeting, I asked Mr. Mead about the effect of the groundwater to wastewater blend mix on subsidence. He told me that, that they've had data available, I believe he said for the last 5 years, which he was gonna make available to the boards. And since that meeting, and I'm not sure I saw anything in the pack, that, would provide that information.
You'd request the plan.
I had asked him, you know, since we have this blend, the 50/50, what was the effect of that blend on subsidence in the woodland? And he said they had the data, they measured annually, And he had data for the last 5 years, and he said that he would provide that data.
But the outside is not aquifer. Were you wanting aquifer information or subsidence?
Subsidence is the part.
Let me chase it down.
All right, and then also on page 3, number 11, one of the other things I had asked was when we were talking about the drainage, I had asked Mr. Yates about whether or not that $1 million bond had an expiration date, and there was some, you were checking, and you said you were gonna check on that and get back to us. So I haven't seen anything on
That's
that.
today. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Okay, well,
It's on the agenda.
as part of, I'm talking about in a minute, I had made those requests, and they were not, both of those requests were not reflected in the minute.
Oh.
That's what I'm making. a comment. Shelley, I can give you some specific words about the. Okay,
One last question, if I can, on item 6, page 22, just for me, my information. What is a correction roll 25?
Oh, that's for the appraisal district. That's the last, certified roll we got.
It's called.
It's called
25
roll, yeah.
Every time?
They number them.
Oh,
So like in October, we'll get 1. And then the next month we'll get 2.
okay. I just didn't know what it was. How are you? Thank
Yeah,
you.
that's what it is. They're just numbered.
Perfect.
Question on item 5. Really 5 page and 14. Refunds. Are we finished? Next thing checks?
We're still cutting checks. We're done. They're now, they're upstairs ready. They are cutting them right and left.
You about?
So we're down to $36,000. So on 2023,
The dollar value standpoint, we have 4 accounts that are commercial. They total $34,000. And then the balance of those 5 pages are residential, and they're 37,000. So is that typical that the commercial equals the residential adjustment?
well, it depends on the judge, if there's judgments. If there's a lot of,
But you don't have a.
I don't know, huh? Mm-mm, mm-mm.
Much more is coming, we know.
Nothing until October 1. We are cutting your refunds and hopefully next month we're gonna have everything back in balance.
Page 22. There's something about mid-line there, it says 39 DEF area.
Oh, defined area, that's new for med 39. It doesn't have anything to do with 67. It's a new taxing jurisdiction. It's gonna be for med 39.
There's no. Okay, so you started, so you don't have a.
Yeah, I don't have any information other than value.
Subject to those corrections, move that we accept the remainder of the minutes of the consent agenda. On the consent agenda, okay? Thanks. And all in favor? All right.
I abstained, because I wasn't in the minutes.
Item 8, review the district's draft fiscal year 24-25 operating budget, recommend water rate structure.
All right. So before you have a copy of the budget, and there's also a budget memo that kind of summarizes the budget itself. Just a reminder, today, there's no action to be taken. We'll present it and then you'll act on it next month. Also to note, the conversation we'll have about tax setting recommendations, we'll have in the next agenda item. The results of that tax recommendation are inputted into your budget at the top in yellow. So that tax rate there is from the tax rate recommendations that you're about to hear, which then goes into the budget on the revenue side. So just a couple brief notes on the front page. If you recall, last year we did a water and sewer rate analysis and did modify the rates last year. First time in many years that the rates were increased. We are not proposing any additional water rate increases on the retail side. This does include the rates that you heard from SDRA over the last couple months, that the wholesale water rate is going down, that the wholesale sewer rate is staying the same, and that the GRP rate is going down as well. So all that's included in this page. On the revenue side, nothing really out of order on the front page. Talking about the expenses on the back page, that's where everybody usually likes to hear and look at. I did want to point out a couple outliers in this year's budget from last year. If you'll look at line item number 5300.6, it says water service maintenance. And so if you'll look at the blue column, on the right of it was this year's budget, on the left of it is the proposed budget for next year, for this coming year. You'll see, yeah, you'll see budget 5,200 and this year's budget 77,000. So what that is a proposal to switch out your some of your commercial meters. So as you recall, I think it was completed roughly in 2022. The Woodlands changed out their AMI, their meters on the resident, mostly on the residential and smaller diameter meter size. The larger commercial meters was done at this time, I think, partly for cost and partly because the meters weren't available. So now they're being manufactured. The all compound, mechanical compound meters are becoming obsolete. So that number is a proposal so you have 24 large diameter commercial meters, old compound meters, 24 total, and that's 3-inch and above. This budget would contemplate doing 9 of those, which are the 9, 3, and 4-inch compound meters. Yeah, now that obviously means we still have about 15 to go, and those are larger than 4-inch. So we would look to start tackling those over the next few years.
Are we doing that because of a budgetary issue or because they're not available?
Well, the parts on the existing meters are becoming obsolete. So in the mechanical meter world, you can actually go in and repair them. And so these new meters are ultrasonic meters. So there's no even parts in terms of spending, in.
I guess I didn't have to go ask the question properly. I apologize. I know from Mr. Stinson, rating of the replacement of them, and I 100% agree. We saved a lot on water loss. Did you do a calculation on how much these would save the volume of water, expected water loss with the new meters versus the old, and when it would pay out?
We haven't done that, no. The old meters are not going to be able to be repaired anymore. That's a bigger problem. What we saw on the residential side in terms of water quality, water accountability, was we were, prior to the change out, I think we were around 10 or 12% losses, and we're down in the 4.5% losses. So I would anticipate, and these are larger diameter and larger water amounts coming through these. So I would imagine that we're going to have some pretty good reduction in losses there. The other thing to note is, you may recall that we hired a company last year to do an auditing of potential lost revenues on water bill. And the deal is that they go out and identify issues in the field with meters, mechanical, physical, could be billing issues, to see if they could find where there might be some lost revenue. And they have found some things. And the majority, if not all, of the things that they have found are on these old, larger diameter mechanical compound meters, where it has a low flow and a high flow side to the meter. And a lot of times one of the two sides will stick or stop working. And that's where they've encountered a lot of the water losses that we've been seeing. So in those cases, in the past, we just have to fix the meter. In this case, we're wanting to move forward and just replace the meter with more, with the technology that you have in the rest of your system, which I think was probably always the plan long-term.
One thing you may could do is test some of the bigger meters, and if you find one that is grossly not working, is maybe move it to a higher priority.
I guess, the reason for my question was if it's cost effective, in other words, you're gonna save on water loss earlier, perhaps we should do all 24. Is that your analysis?
Yeah, the cost per the larger is exponential. It ramps up really high. There is 2 other districts that have asked that question.
Okay, good.
Should we just look at all of them? Because it's never gonna be cheaper than now to buy them. So that's certainly an option. I could bring that number to you, next month to see. But I just know it will probably be significantly more, but we can look at it.
I'd like to see the cost benefit. That's a simple engineering thing, right?
Okay.
Oh, that's good.
Another item you want to mention?
Okay.
In the budget?
Yeah.
Yes. So on 530009, couple down, you'll see that budget line item went down significantly. And that is related to you completing some of the sanitary sewer rehabilitation project that is ongoing. Recall you did an analysis a couple years ago to smoke test and televise the sewer system to see where you had breaks, cracks, deteriorated manholes, etc. The recommendation coming out of that was a 3-phase or a 3-year call it phase approach to tackling pieces of that over a 3-year period. So phase 1 or year 1 is complete, the construction of. Phase 2 is the design's is complete and nearly approved. We're waiting for approvals. And then phase 3 will be good to start design next year during this budget cycle. So that is still an elevated number, but down from last year as we get into phase 2. And last year we anticipated that we would probably get further along into phase 2, and we just haven't because the plans are waiting for us to agree on that one. And the other one I wanted to point out is 5314 further down, storm sewer repair. So you can see that one went up about $25,000 or so. We are currently working with our ditch maintenance provider, the ones that mow it, and they also give a analysis of what they see from a lot of what the residents were just mentioning about condition of the ditch. And we've asked them to help us do an audit of all of your backslope interceptor piping and your storm sewer piping that's coming into those ditches. We had several pretty significant collapses and sinkholes of that type of pipe in other districts last year and this year. And so I suspect that we have a bigger problem on our hands probably, that we need to understand what is the condition of all the CMP corrugated metal pipe. It's that wavy metal pipe that you see in ditches. And after 20 to 30 years, it starts to disintegrate and just fall apart. And so what we're going to do with this audit is bring in all of the data from the audit, put it into GIS, and start building a capital improvement plan for each of the districts to see what we're up against. To see, and if there's anything immediate, we're going to have to probably address it. If there's something that looks like it's heading that way, we might put it into a planning structure to see how the different districts can address the pipes that they need to, and the ditch for that matter. So if they identify any ditches that have excessive silt in areas, things like that, then we'll bring that to you as well. What we've put in this budget is one major repair, $25,000 line item to do one major repair in case it happens. It may or may not, but we've dealt with several of them over the last 12 months across the woodland. So that was another budget line item that went up.
Is there anything in this budget for repaying the loan with the Texas Water Development Board in the next 12 months? Don't foresee that need to do that. That's what I would guess.
We're paying $235,000.
In this budget?
Yes.
Okay. Where is that? Where's that? Yeah.
The Texas Water Development Board borrowing is gonna be wrapped in, well, debt service on that's gonna be wrapped into the debt service side.
Okay, got it.
Not the,
Not in the operating.
not an accelerated payback project.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing that we look at just as part of this budget for some of the new directors is that green bar at the bottom. That's something that we look at. That represents the number of months of reserve against your budget. And in the Woodlands districts, what we're liking or wanting to see is to get that number up between 15 or between 12 and 16 months. What that'll do is allow you to tackle some of these bigger projects or that we may be running into. But we know that the infrastructure is aging, and so we're trying to get all of the districts up just a bit so we can. Most of the districts don't have the ability to sell bonds. The other alternative to capturing additional revenue quickly would be to raise water and sewer rates, which is, obviously we don't want to try to do that if we don't have to. So between the tax rate recommendation and this budget, we're trying to look at your reserves just to make sure that we're in a good spot going forward. I mean, at 11.7, it's a good bump, and we're definitely heading in the right direction. So you're doing well, and you're setting yourself up for success.
One question on another line item, the billing and late notice prep is going up substantially, something going on that we need to know about.
Cost of paper has increased and postage, postage is in there, cost of paper and our mailing or inserting process.
As we just know.
Send in the bill for that.
Just
Yeah, that's.
Plain old cost.
Bad is happening.
Well, inflation,
Well, that's it, Well, yeah, we all know about that.
Maureen, I would recommend with this, I think it's fee schedule A,
Mhm.
if we could simplify that. Over the years, it's been different numbers for different things. And now they're all the same. So you
Right.
might look at it, just put it into one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Simplification.
Are there any other questions?
I had a question for Eric on his memo. He said something about the budget development with some other departments and our views on significant expenses that this may need to plan. Anything significant we haven't mentioned? All good? Yeah.
Well, the only thing is, look at the capacity. How much capacity the districts have purchased and other, which one capacity purchased in the future. 67, that's still have some tracks. They're doing that globally for the districts, so.
But nothing affects
Who's they is doing?
Nothing
No,
that,
nothing would affect this budget.
Nothing.
Nothing would affect.
But who's they? Who's the they is doing?
Our use is looking into what their current development plans are for undeveloped tracks. Compared to what those plans for back at the 6 and 5 county when capacity is purchased. To see if the land uses have changed to create the need for more capacity. If a projected use to be denser or maybe it's gonna be more vertical. As is the demand for buildings.
There's no way beyond that. So how many undeveloped power use tracks do you have in 67? What acres? Who can?
we have to look at it.
I don't think there's too many.
Not much.
Well, no, that's all I'm asking. Let's find out.
But then on the cost side of the bulk sewer, you're projecting 86.5%. And if you look at the current financials through July 31st, that percentage is 91.5%. The costs are remaining the same. I would anticipate the next year's budget is going to be closer to 90% at 86.5. I would recommend that we change that to 90%, and that would increase the cost by about $61,000.
Okay, I use the River 30's projected gallons for that, but I can increase it,
I'm just
or I can
saying
increase the,
actual data.
fine.
And it'd be a good time to shift over to the tax side.
Item 9,
New line, starting on page 25, with the memo followed by a few tables. The tax rate's being processed, the 2% process, so all you're doing today is authorizing publication of the total tax rate.
Next month, you'll hold a public hearing and then adopt and levy the tax rate. And you'll break out the pieces of maintenance and operations and debt service. So all that being said, though, I guess, and I should preface with, you always want to publish the highest rate you'll consider, because next month you can always come down from that number. You just can't go up without republishing. So all that being said, if you look at assumption number 1, 2024 net taxable value, that's as of January 1.
Can you interject on the cover letter? And it seems as though there's, in the first paragraph, you're talking about the maintenance being a number with 0.085, and it seems in the last paragraph, the debt service is 0.085. Are those
So,
correct?
yeah, we'll talk about, so the first paragraph is 23. And then if you look at below, based on this analysis, that's 24. So,
I know that. but-
yeah, so
You're right. I read it 5 times too.
it is essentially flip flop. Yeah.
Was a debt service last year.
It's the same number, different
Yeah.
category. Okay, that's what I wanted to.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, no worries. Yeah, and stop me if you have questions along the way, please. So your 2024 net taxable value, you're at just under 2.4 billion. That's an 11.49% increase over 2.1 billion last year. All that being said, last year you levied an 8.5 cent debt service tax rate, and you flip to the next page. This is your outstanding debt service. And if you look in that middle column, you need 5.75 cents. That's what you need currently. And if you'd like, I'll go through every column really quickly so you know what everything is reading. That first column, year ending, you're collecting taxes in arrears, so it's 1 year off from your levy. So keep that in mind. The second column, beginning fund balances as of June 30th. The next column, fund interest earning, we assume 2%. You're currently getting about 5.3%, but a little less than 2 years ago, we were at next to nothing. So this is kind of in the middle. The next 2 columns are blank. The next column, prior year AV, it's just that first line is your 2023 certified value, and then below that is your 2024. And then we just run that down through your outstanding debt. We don't include any inflation when it comes to taxes, because really all you're looking at is the current year. You're looking at levying this year, and then beyond that, it'll be something to look at next year. So you can see that growth in the next column, year over year, 11.486%. The next column, your debt service tax rate to pay your outstanding principal and interest, which, as I mentioned, you're at 5.75 cents. The next column, tax collections based on your taxable value and the tax rate, assuming 98% collections year over year. The next column, total funds available, that will be what you collect in a given year plus the fund balance. Current debt service and total debt service are the same thing because you're not issuing any new debt. But you'll notice that the 8.5 cents was needed last year to pay that $1.9 million principal and interest obligation. And then you can see it's dropping to 1.27, which is why we're showing the decrease from 8.5 cents to 5.75 cents. And then the second to the right column, your ending fund balance at every given year. And then all the way to the right, your debt service coverage. The TCEQ requires we maintain a minimum of 25% of your following year's debt service. Yes. And so we're just showing that you meet that obligation. And then if you flip to the next page.
If we get off there, what if any exact number, do we have any other numbers for the specific bonds we have? Requirements to get coverage?
So the debt service account is cumulative of some of the bond issues we have outstanding. It's not a separate account.
Oh,
Yeah, and one thing to clarify with respect to your debt service fund balance, once you put dollars into that account, it stays in that account because it's pledged to outstanding debt. So what we try and do is put as much on your M&O side so that you can use those funds as you see fit as a board. You can always transfer money into the debt service account. You can't transfer money out of the debt service account. So just keep that in mind. So if you flip to the next page, it says one of the most informational, pages. Top box with respect to your maintenance and operations side of your tax rate. Last year you levied 0.062228, which generated about 1.3 million. This year's proposed M and O rate at 8.5 cents would generate just under 2 million. The parity rate, if you wanted to raise the same number of dollars you did last year, you'd need 5.58 cents. And then currently you need roughly 4.5 cents to balance your budget. So this does show the surplus that Eric was talking about. And then the value of a penny in your district is almost $234,000. So keep that in mind. Middle box with respect to the average homestead and tax bill. Last year's average homestead value of $433,490 meant that the average tax bill was $638. This year with the proposed tax rate, the average homestead of $469,913 would mean an average tax bill of $670 or a $32 increase in the average tax bill. And then the value of a penny with respect to the tax bill is $47. So keep that in mind as well. So your average homestead went up 8.4%. And this is showing a 4.92% increase in tax bill.
Have you said that again, please?
Yeah, sure. So the increase from the 433,490 to 469,913 is 8.4%. And so with the slight reduction in tax rate, the increase in the tax bill would be the 4.92% or $432.
So they got hit with inflation. That's how
Right.
their houses went up 8%.
Correct.
So then the bill goes up.
Right.
That's good.
And then with respect to the bottom box, Senate Bill 2 designates or has a district designate itself as basically there's three categories: developing, developed, and low tax rate. You don't qualify for low tax rate. You're currently developing, so you fall back to what the standard was prior to Senate Bill 2, which means that as long as your tax bill does not go up more than 8%, you're okay. If it goes over 8%, then your residents could petition for a rollback election. And if that rollback election is successful, then it rolls back your maintenance and operations side of your tax rate only because the debt service tax rate is pledged to bonds. And so you're at 4.92%. Once you become a developed district, that drops to 3.5%. And then it's a mandatory rollback election. And so all that being said, your proposed rate for discussion today is 14.25 pennies. The parity rate from last year would be 13.58 cents. The total rate to avoid a rollback election would be 14.66 cents. And then you can see from that top box, the second line, the proposed rate of 8.5 cents. If you went over the 8% and you went to a rollback election, it would roll back to 6.19 cents. So all that being said, I'm happy to answer any questions. And as I mentioned, the proposal right now would be 14.25 pennies. That's 8.5 cents on maintenance and operations, and 5.75 cents on debt.
The one basic question, what is definition by which you determine that it's a developing district? What
The definition and the engineer typically provides that 95% of the infrastructure has to be constructed and funded to serve all tracts within the district.
That determination is made every year, January, February, so it was just shortly before we all came on board. But it's an annual determination, so they when at the beginning of next year.
Keep the analysis and stuff, which we didn't develop.
It's, I mean, it really is, it's a function of how much I don't know.
I understand what you did on the M and O stuff. I think that would make sense for me. So when I look at the debt stuff, and you look pretty conservative in the spreadsheet, if you ask, right? I mean, the interest rate we get is 4, not 2. We said 98% debt service. I think we've been running right around 99, if I'm not mistaken, from simple reports with you. I'm trying to understand where you came up with the 8.5 cents. Yeah, is there an analysis that says it should be 8.5 cents and I'm not seeing?
8.5 cents, that's the maintenance and operations.
Oh, that's what I meant, I'm sorry. No, yeah, that's what I'm talking about, the maintenance and operation.
Yeah, no,
Apologies,
it's,
yes.
it's just a discussion. So from the aspect of this recommendation, my obligation is on the debt service side. We talk with staff with respect to the budget, and so staff makes a recommendation on the budgetary side. And so that is the reason for the penny flip in a given year, and it's, you know, in an effort to bring up your reserves.
Oh, so the entire, we've got it covered. Your goal was to get us to a year coverage, is that,
At least, yeah.
what can I ask what the other months average is? 10 months?
I'd have to look at what the average is. There's some at 3 that they're in trouble, and then there's some at 7. And then there's a couple at, that are around 11 or 16.
6
So average is probably 8 or 9. I can-
Okay, so we're kind of near average and trying to bump it up a little bit. And if we're trying to maintain it where it is, do you know what that number would be?
We're at about 9 last year.
Yeah, I mean, that will be refined next month. It might go higher or lower. I don't know. See where the cash is at.
Yeah, 8.
What was the debt coverage percentage last year? Period. By my calculator, this represents, was 37.6, represents about 4.5 months of the
Right now, we're at 10.8,
debt service.
10.8 right now. For July.
That's the number, that's what I was. Look at that.
Last year, at the end of the year, you had 33%.
You said 25 still.
That is
Why?
fine from here.
So if you feel comfortable with 33,
So
pretty good for people like that, I don't know.
August
It's
is
not my
real.
rule, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not looking to sell it,
Better.
then you really don't need to
Probably should. because-
keep it too far above a 25%.
What's a good banana? You saw, we saw lots of that, right, Brian? Kind of where do you find the markets to be comfortable with that? All of that's interest rate for us.
Because that's sewer option.
Interest rate
Yeah,
or
the debt coverage, yeah,
the debt coverage, I think that's standard. What
Oh.
I've got here is standard.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, if S&P or somebody else is looking at your debt coverage or reserve, they're gonna see the financial development.
Okay.
So one thing for, John Stevens, for y'all, you were just to make sure we're clear about what we got here in the opportunity that we all recognize. You're having a 2.75 cent reduction in the debt service benefit going from 8.5 down to the 5.75. Those opportunities don't come along very often. Depends on how your debt structure. Look at age 26, you're not going to have another opportunity like that until roughly between 2032 and 2033. I know this assumes the AV stays the same, but just looking at this, you're not going to have another debt shelf that's all that for another several years. So this is a fairly rare that comes along for some of these districts in time, just type of debt structure, to be able to move pennies from your debt service to your M&O rate without triggering a rollback election and not raising the overall tax rate on your residents. So it gives you a unique opportunity to be able to build up your reserves more than what you otherwise would be able to do. Because you're able to move what's happening here, you're moving a little over 2.3 cents over the M&O up at 2.75. You're giving about half a penny back to the residents in a lower tax rate. So that's what you're getting the opportunity to do here with this tax year. You won't see that it's y'all's first year, so maybe, oh, this works this way every year. Well, I mean, it doesn't.
No, it's
So, it's a unique chance to be able to build that reserve up and put you in a position to be able to handle that 3.5% developed district designation when it comes along. But some districts have already gone down pretty low or SB2 went into effect, they got in a real fine because 3.5%, increase in revenue on a really low tax rate doesn't give you much of the ability to future preserve.
You still using Conroe Curry?
Yes.
You're using Conroe Curry for the notice.
Maureen, you said you had an answer that we didn't hear on what our, current ratio was?
Current, it's in your
Yeah,
packet, you're sitting it right now through the end of July at 10.8 months,
10.8.
which is ahead of the budget. So I'm predicting your beginning number on that worksheet may start a little higher, possibly, don't know. Next month we'll know more. Okay.
Yeah, but we have
That's
to,
all I was saying.
we have to prove your number now, right?
Publish.
I thought we were, we had to
Publishing.
prove it jointly. No,
You have to
Publishing this
publish
month,
the tax
next month, you can come down from that number, you just can't go up without.
Gotcha.
Right.
Go up.
That's where that is.
Yeah.
Thanks. It's a pretty significant increase in our M and O, right?
Well, you're, yeah,
For the shed.
you're shifting the pennies over from the
Yeah.
side.
But it's an overall decrease in the tax.
Overall decrease in
Yeah.
tax.
Yeah, no, that's, I've seen that, or this stuff, and it's true. At the same time, if we don't have that great need for cash reserve, which I'm hearing, our ratios aren't too bad, we're taking money from our taxpayers and putting it in our bank. And it may not necessarily be the right thing to do. I'm simply, that's why I was asking Eric, I'd like to see a little breakdown of the different rates, a little more reduction, closer to reduce some of that growth and benefit our taxpayers. You know, I know we're all feeling the effects of inflation, and this is helping, but if we can help without hurting ourselves as a management, I think we should take a little look at that before we approve the final number. That's the suggestion.
Yeah, but that's the point of time period between this meeting and the next.
Correct.
Meeting. This is just to publish the highest possible rate that you would consider. If you don't want to publish a rate, you know, no way you're gonna approve it. If you want information, consider what you feel comfortable with the open tax rate, that's what we see. That's.
So we ready for a motion one?
Yes, we're ready for vote.
I motion we publish the tax rate recommended by the financial. Supervisor.
I'll second that.
Those in favor?
Aye.
And we'll publish it earlier.
And here, let's take a look at that. I'll just make a little table of what.
They're going up for the MKR.
Yes, sir. Let me answer these questions first. I'm sitting here looking at the Harris Galveston Subsidence District interactive map.
Okay.
There are 6 sites in the woodlands that you can click on and get information. So looking
And I
at
can
the 6
change on the
sites,
fly.
they range anywhere from 0.78 centimeters per year up to 1.29 centimeters per year for the last 10 to 15 years.
What site is that? Ed, so I can think.
Harris Galveston.
Yep.
Subsidence District,
Oh, thank you.
and then they have an interactive map. And then we have sent Eric an email with some links that he can share with you all.
Perfect. That's great.
So
Thanks for good on that.
that's out of the way. Our report begins on page 28. There's nothing new or changes other from what was published. I do have on page 47 an update. Report that got included in your package is from last month on the land acquisition. So the new percent complete is 9.89. At the very bottom, lower right-hand corner. And then in the chart that's in the middle of the page, where it says phase 1 ESA, that's now 50% complete. And the next column over, meets and bounds, that's 75% complete. And we will update that on a monthly basis. There are also some charts in here, pages 48 through 52. They give you aquifer levels, static water levels in the wells. Don't try to interpret the individual lines, because they tend to get a little close together. Look at the trends on
That's a good idea.
the way they're going. And so in the Evangeline Aquifer, for the wells that we have in the Evangeline Aquifer, and right now we're pumped out of the 50% groundwater that we use, 15% of it comes from the Evangeline Aquifer. You can see that along about between 2015 and 2021, it raised up, levels raised up a little bit, and then 22, they started trending downward a little. And when you go to page 52, the same occurs on the upper jet.
That's the 85% one?
Yes. And then my final thing is on page 53, just Bear Branch maintenance summary of what we encountered during the month of July. And of course, if you remember, we had a nice rainfall during the month of July. With everything else that's been going on.
So on the aquifer grass, is that a vertical scale, that from the surface? Is that corrected elevation or something?
No, sir. That's, well,
I don't know.
on the left side,
Yeah, the vertical, oh yeah, the steep grass.
yes,
Yeah, the left side, the depth, what is that from?
natural ground.
Okay.
The water levels are 300 to 400 foot deep. And yeah, and that's true on both of them.
Yeah, page 45.
When you get there.
Well, sure. No, you know the answer. What, because I had no clue and I looked it up, I still was confused. What's a CPM scan? A pipe.
I'll have to get you an answer.
I didn't know what, I couldn't find, I looked online, I got some weird stuff.
It's some way that they're able to go inside the pipe and
Just curious there.
and look at the degradation of the interior pipe.
Yeah, just curious what the testing technique was thinking. And then, are we gonna get any interim reports from this thing, or just gonna all get something at the end?
We should have something in the next 30 to 60 days that we can share.
Okay, good.
Any questions?
Yeah, I got one, no, I got a comment. I gotta find the page, sorry. Yeah. Page 31,
Yes, sir.
how many months has it been since we've had financial accounting data from you guys?
Wow, April.
About 4, 5?
I got an email earlier today that said we can actually see budget versus actual
Oh,
for the first time.
just so now that we've, has the budget been approved by your board?
They're approving everything tomorrow.
So they have they have the latest actual versus budget.
I don't know if accounting will have had time to print everything and make it available.
I can tell you, I've been in the industry for an awfully long time before I retired. I've never had this many months without a financial report. I think it's embarrassing that you guys don't have your financials. Or more embarrassing is that a budget got pushed without having updated actuals for like the current year. I don't know how you could justify in front of your board saying, here's our budget, when we don't even know what we spent. So I don't know who's responsible for this. I think it's a tragedy that you guys are doing this. And I'm disappointed that we would approve a budget for you guys based on this kind of financial information.
We've also been going through a major software update.
Understood.
Replacement. And so we went live, we didn't run parallel. And so this is what we've had to deal with. And we've had the conversation with our platform provider. They've even been, their payments have even been delayed because we couldn't cut checks for a while.
I think it's a good idea. They shouldn't be paid at all until they got this fixed. This is incredible. I don't know organizations that do this.
This is short compared to other entities.
Not in my world, it hasn't been. You do a transition, you don't always go into it with live and drop here. Almost every organization's had to go through this type of computer stuff. It's about the changes in computing, right? This is not atypical. I'm embarrassed with it. That's my comment.
Item 11.
Yeah, Bear Branch, so follow-up discussion from last month. So we have, contacted the engineer as well as put together response to our development aid regarding the anticipated delay in the project and the project schedule that was attached to the grant agreement as exhibit C, indicated that the project would begin, construction would begin in late April of this year, which obviously didn't happen. And that construction would be complete by June the 17th of next year, which is also not going to happen. So, that needs to be communicated to the water development board. We're also going to need to have, an amendment, to the grant agreement with the new project schedule, but we need to the consultant, to get that new scope of this. And then exhibit D is for the project to the grant agreement. That's also kind of up in the air right now with what we heard from the most recent modeling. So that also needs to be communicated to for development board, the fact both that the budget has changed and what the new budget is, and then also if there is going to be an issue with sufficient funds, not sufficient funds. Right now, it's in.
The advice to the.
Oh.
It's in the consulting report right now. So we, I emailed last month and got an update a couple days ago that they're still working on it. So I think part of it was the discussion at One Water
Yeah.
about other possible solutions. So you want to go ahead and share that.
Yeah, I'm gonna update everybody on that as well. And also what I just passed around was a summary that Paul, you asked for, that shows where all the funding is coming from. And your portion is that top line item, which was part of which was the bond. None of the other participants are part of that. They put in their share of 4 million. Your bond is 6.55, which is why you're essentially in the lead on the project. But to give you an update, your engineer presented to you in June that the modeling had been completed and the updated cost estimate for the scenario that the model had been run on, which was to build the 2 detention ponds there at Gosling Research, and then to clear out the underbrush on Bear and Panther, had been completed. And that the updated cost estimate was going to be more than what the 11.6 that we have in the bank today. So we had talked about in general, I think last month, where do we go from here? There was a little bit of talk of, well, maybe we run some different scenarios, see if there's a more cost-effective solution that gets the same level of benefit, which the level of benefit that was accomplished through the modeling on this particular scenario drops the water surface elevation on Research Forest by about 2 feet. And then in the surrounding community on both sides of Research, it's anywhere from 1 to 2 feet also. So really that whole area drops in a tax day type of event. That was, so run some scenarios or see if we can go find some money. So what I did was I put together a meeting with the township, with Representative Toth, Congressman Crenshaw's office, and then a couple stakeholder MUDs to basically familiarize the legislators with this project, specifically to see if there was any available funding that they thought might be available to run after. So we had that meeting on Monday, I think it was, of this week. Had a good meeting, a lot of good discussion. I think overall, there was probably some suggestions from the legislators that there might be a little bit of money here and there, but there really wasn't a lot of talk about, this big pot of money that would bridge the gap on the shortage. So more of the conversation went to, well, now that we have this model done, maybe we look at running the model on a couple different scenarios to see if there's another option that is either more cost effective and still gets the benefit that we were after with the project itself. So really no decisions or anything were obviously made in that meeting. but I wanted to bring y'all, an update of where, you know, that meeting went and, talk about where we go from here. What I had asked the engineer was to possibly bring to us a proposal, to run, you know, 2 or 3 different, scenarios, for next month and then see where that goes.
Because my guess, to answer the question about the response, I guess if you want to provide the response to the water development agreement, so come to a landing point of what the solution is, so we know how to revise the budget, and what the projected use schedule would be based on what the use schedule is.
Yeah, and if there's not a more cost-effective option, we run a bunch of the different scenarios at the model, then we either the project dies or we need to find some additional funding. The dilemma with doing like a half a project, let's say, or half the benefit, doesn't accomplish what's needed. And the biggest accomplishment of this project to reduce the water surface elevation so that emergency vehicles can get through the research forest and the surrounding area.
And even the public.
Correct. Absolutely.
Research is open and usable.
That's right.
Events. And last what Steve mentioned, well, what about using Lake Woodlands? And I did some calculation in my head and I was off. I think the total detention plan for this project is about 240 acre feet, 240, 220. Well, Lake Woodlands is 200 acres, so I have to put theirs 100 acre feet. So maybe it's worth looking at, you know, if there's a will to try to modify that to be a detention area.
Yeah, the comments were, have we looked at digging out, Bear Branch? Have we looked, or Bear Reservoir? Have we looked at, Lake Woodlands? And Donnie had said, well, based on the old model, they did look at those things and it looked to have very minimal, benefit, but it hadn't been run on the new model. So that was kind of where the discussion went, was, okay, maybe we rerun those on the new model now that the whole Woodlands is modeled, and just see if there's something that is more economical that still gets us the bang for the buck.
If I may, Steve and I attended that meeting. You heard, I watched a trustee meeting the week before, and it came up at the end of the trustee meeting that there was a meeting on the Bear Branch, Panther Creek drainage problem, which we're the lead agencies. Mud 67 is the lead, and I was surprised to find out about it that way, but I called Eric and invited myself and Steve to go. I had a lot of conversation with the model after the end of the meeting. It's a very robust model that hasn't been put to hard work. He's just finished building it. I mean, he wrote his report here in March, which is there's a composite report that Eric passed out to us that I'm going through. It's very detailed, but it's a robust model. It's complicated. It takes a lot of computing power, but it can do a lot of things for us. We can do different scenarios. And I asked the modeler, did he have some ideas on what he had in his model that he hasn't tweaked? He talked about even downstream of the detention ponds that we're looking at. So my sense is that the 5 muds involved have not been involved. The ones that are paying, from that meeting, it was clear that they wanted more input in questioning of the model to find out what may or may not be the options. Part of the problem we heard about today is associated with that model. Eric talks about the highways. When you did your bond application, one of the big losses was the high school. Of course, they thought the cost benefit was the high school. High school happens to be in the zone of subsidence. There's a couple things the model hasn't done yet that might be tweaked. You heard about, Ed just gave us some pretty strong subsidence numbers, ratios, and that's not included in the model. So in 10 years, what they're going to look like. So if you're looking at the solution now, you're going to flood the high school, which is some other thing. The other thing it's not looking at is the development of acreage. In the Woodlands, yes, it's pretty developed, but you move out to the periphery on it, it's still in the watershed. You know, up there in Egypt, and that's all 1480, that's all being built up. And that's paving ground. And when you have a marsh, it has a different coefficient than a parking lot, right? And that he can do it in the model if we ask him to do it. He just hasn't been asked to do it. My suggestion after talking to the modeler and talking to some of the other mud people that were at other muds that were at that meeting is that we form a committee of everybody of a mud that's each mud that's involved, and sit with the modeler and go through the model and understand it and make a recommendation with Eric people and with I think the river authority is still involved, correct, Ed?
We were managing
you're managing it. So I think we need to take a step back and do a comprehensive look at what can and can't be done with that model. I can also tell you from talking to the political entities that were there, they're skeptical that we can find money. I heard Eric, and the big comments made were, where's all the people flooding? Because when you run the model, there's some minor flooding and some water issues, but it's not like, yeah, but it's not like Spring Creek, right? And so
That's correct.
doesn't mean we can't work on our problems, but that's one of the priority levels for them is what's the cost benefit ratio, right? So I would like to propose that we spearhead a technical committee with other MUDs involved and work with Eric and the River Authority to really understand the model and make a recommendation on what to tweak before we go forward.
Referring back to this, schedule here that was passed out. What's not on here is the interest income that was earned on those funds during this period of time. And that's the total expense of $456,000. For example, this current year to date, we're at $196,000. And we just earned $20,000. So that's conservatively going to be around $25,000 for this year and last year. $150,000. So we've offset probably, 70-80% of that cost with interest earnings. So I would request that number be brought down to a finite number and just put it on the script.
That money, that interest will be restricted to the project, correct?
And these engineering fees are the model predominantly.
Yeah, we still got another $500,000 to go.
But there was a bunch of surveying. That's pretty good.
Yeah, the cross section, it was a nice model. It was really well built. I was really impressed. And Eric, on this table, I've got a number of comments from the other MUDs. They don't have a clue, and I don't either, how they got their percentage allocation. You have somebody we can explain that to them, help me understand.
My understanding, it was based on kind of a cross section of drainage areas, contributing drainage areas, as well as homes flooded within those drainage areas.
And neighborhoods impact,
Right.
not just homes flooded, but homes or neighborhoods that were impassable for a lengthy period of time. And I can tell you, the final contribution was a negotiated amount. All of those drainage areas impacted were factors, but the final number here was a negotiated contribution.
And then those percentages were skewed down because Metro is not a participant, does not provide any water to the project, but put in $1 million.
But we could back that out and still not understand where the numbers came from. I understand negotiation, but we must have worked off some kind of calculation. Is there some way you can share the calculations?
A couple of documents.
Oh, great.
Eric, yeah.
I'd like to see.
I have some maps. I don't have all the calculations, but I have some maps showing the drainage areas and what areas are affected.
Okay, that would be helpful. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know the answer either.
And 12, sorry, nothing to cover in the open session. Item 13, men.
Okay, I don't have any additional things. I'm gonna pass it on to John. I will say that the mowing has begun. It did start in Harper's. They're moving down into 36 and they'll be moving west over the next several weeks.
We'll get the running late, I'll make this quick for you. Like out things. Okay. We want to point out that we have in-person outreach events coming up this fall and years. We'll add to this calendar. You can find this calendar on your Google Drive as well. We encourage directors to join us at any of these. Please come on out and talk with the residents with us. You have examples of our current marketing materials on the next few pages, and including some statistics on some of our social media platforms. Still looking to add Instagram and LinkedIn, perhaps in the next couple months, bring those online. We are now a proud sponsor of Woodlands Online Sports. Right, so that's where you can go to watch all your high school sports, live or recorded. And, what that does is, well, one, it gets over 100,000 views a year. And, in Woodlands and College Park Sports. And so that is a great way to brand ourselves as community supporters. It helps us communicate with folks that are very much engaged in the community. It's a nice SWOT demographic. So I think that's going to be a nice tool for us going forward.
What are you gonna do?
Go Highlanders.
What are you gonna do with that?
I'm sorry.
I'm always skeptical when I see my TV and I see public utilities and everybody else advertising with my money. Well, I already know you're there. What are you advertising? Now, if you're telling them something useful, I mean, which I think you do in a lot of your things, then I go, okay, well, now I've learned something and I heard your name. What is your intent with Woodlands Online? What are you gonna do?
Well, a lot of folks don't know we're there, quite honestly, or they don't know who we are, what we do. You know, there's still a lot of confusion in the community about where they get the water. If they get from the township, they're not quite sure. So there is value in continuing to identify who we are and what we do. We have a lot of customer support programs that we want to make sure folks are well aware of, or wise guys, or rebates, all of those materials, all of our.
That's what I'm. The more helpful it is, the more they're gonna be receptive to your message and not feel like their money's in the price.
Yeah, we're not just gonna put our logo.
Yeah, you know exactly what you see those, right? You go, get off my TV, give me my money back.
Right.
Thank you. That's just a,
Right.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, you bet. And then Eric was gonna make a note about our starting communications.
Yeah, so next month we will be, as you know, the PEC working with SGRA and the PR firm that is helping to start building the public outreach campaign for aging infrastructure and the renewal. And so there is a website that's been drafted, and the firm will be here to present that next month before it goes to the public. And then also they have developed criteria to build a community work group. And by criteria, what I mean is who are the participants of that work group. The work group will over the course of the campaign communicate and collaborate on, you know, what they're hearing in the community, what are some of the messaging that we need to go through, those types of things. So the working group will consist of a individual from each MUD, individuals from the village associations, other community members, township, Howard Hughes, SGRA, WWA, will all be members or parts of that work group that will help guide the direction of the communications. So next month, I'm gonna need a name of whoever 67 would like to, if anyone wants to volunteer to work on that work group, we're happy to have you, but I'll be looking for a name then. I'll just plant the seed right now for that. And I believe that is all I had.
Paul?
Thank you. On page 62, under committee updates, the audit and finance committee. We met on August 8th to review the WWA budget, not the SKRA,
Oh,
and that was presented at the last trustee meeting, and that's. Nothing else to add besides the minutes that are here in our discussion.
I have a question for you. Trustee Maggard made a motion to form an ad hoc committee to possibly look at an independent consultant to advise on the water treatment facility plans, a possible shorter term look at repair versus the 50-year plan. You voted against it. What was your thinking?
Well, the people that voted against it, felt that the number 4 option in the contract that will be let satisfies that requirement. And broken into 2 parts, 25 years and 50 years. So we will answer the question.
And there was some conversation in moving Park Ford. Is that still here? No, he left. I was curious if there's some conversation among all of you about moving the 4th option to be the 1st option as opposed to the last option.
I don't think.
Do you know if there's any timing in there or not?
I don't think.
No, they'll all be done together.
They're all gonna be done together? That's what I just didn't know. I know it's a conversation I didn't get. Okay.
Well, I mean,
Okay. Well, I took off and.
We do need,
Go to close that.
we do, yes.
Well, before we do, I made a recommendation, I don't know, I don't think it requires us to have an agenda, item. Well, of course, Brian's not here, to form an ad hoc committee and invite other MUDs to participate. What's, in my viewpoint, what's happened with part of this study is it's kind of wandered around, no one's taking control of it. I'm not trying to criticize anybody, but if this thing came out in March, and I heard about it in August, we've got, and then you're surprised that our bond might be getting late. I think we need to take a proactive approach and get the parties that are paying for it involved in analyzing and understanding what our next choices are. That's a recommendation. I haven't heard any conversation.
We need to make that.
I would recommend we put it as an agenda item next month.
Yeah, I mean, it's on the agenda. We can put it to make, to take action on that specific piece of it. And then
Forming a committee that-
I'm
with
expecting,
the other MUDs to look at the technical analysis and the modeling of beer brands so that require a notice.
So, I mean, Alan, that's really, setting up an ad hoc committee is really at the president's discretion on a particular board. So if that's something you want to do, it doesn't require separate board action. All right, how about a motion? You don't. If you want to take one, you can, but it's at your discretion. Well, I mean, other people may not want to.
Yeah, well, what I'd like to do is, I'd like us to form an ad hoc committee among ourselves or who's ever interested in MUD 67 and invite representatives from the other MUDs involved in the Bear Branch Panther Creek Drainage Improvement Project to work on a technical basis to evaluate the existing model and offer recommendations to the MUDs on scenarios to look at before we
I
find.
would just add, yeah, if there is a committee, I would like to volunteer because of my background and experience with this. Sure.
And I would like to volunteer as a geologist and sedimentologist, understanding water. I'd like to be involved.
The three of you are interested in doing that, so let's do it.
There you go.
Well, we can't do
we only can do two.
Can it be three?
no,
Has to be all of us?
No. There's only two.
no more than two.
Oh, because we're all in the same mud and we can have a conversation, but open, Mark, what do you think the open meeting?
Forum.
Correct.
Would be forum.
Two.
You going back now?
No, well, I don't, you could.
We're of like mind, so if you want to.
I'll let you do all the other, like the water runs down on the sewer.
Okay, so the two
You're
of
the
you,
engineer.
okay.
Thank you. All right, so we can draft, that gives us permission to draft. How do you do this, Eric? Do we, you just tell them, do we draft a
I'll
note?
have to reach out and it'll have to go through the other MUD meetings next month.
Okay.
So it won't happen quickly.
Everyone would excuse us, we need to go into closed session. In the 3 minutes that we have.
Yeah.
You got, I was